CyberEssentials Plus is a scheme in the UK for assessing and validating basic cybersecurity stance within your business. You're given a list of security requirements and you must be compliant with these. And an external and third-party auditor then comes in to ensure you are indeed compliant before issuing a certificate that must be renewed yearly. At the time of recording, certification is about £1,800 a pop, depending on who you go with. There's also the standard CyberEssentials, which excludes the auditor. You self-certify, costs close to £500 a year, which is fine if you are genuinely just trying to improve your security stance in your business, but I wouldn't take it as a stamp of trust from a would-be supplier, as people could easily lie to achieve this self-accreditation. So Carnedd are based in North West Wales. At the time of recording, we're a team of 4 programmers. We recently went through the CyberEssentials Plus in order to qualify for certain government contracts that we were bidding upon. We delayed doing this for some time as it seemed that the CyberEssentials program was aimed more at hairdressers and accountants than it was at tech teams. However, we needed the compliance to the contracts we wanted, so we set about it. Here are some of the things we learned along the way and may well be useful to you if you're thinking about implementing CyberEssentials in your tech team. So first of all, there's a big difference between someone who can assess your compliance and someone who can consult on it. We had some quite specific requirements due to the way our programmers work, specifically relating to their need for root access on their machines on a semi-regular basis just to be able to do their jobs. I'm not going to go into what root access is, but what you need to know is it's an instant failure on one of the compliance points on CyberEssentials Plus. So we needed some advice before we invested in the process. This actually turned out to be quite a good measuring stick for assessing auditors, as what became very clear is that there's a big difference between someone who can tick a box to say you're compliant and somebody who can actually consult on making you compliant. I must have spoken to half a dozen people before somebody actually had the technical skill to be able to answer my question. Needless to say, we went with them. But only 1 in 6 people I spoke to was able to consult, not just tick boxes. So it does feel a bit like the scheme is the blind leading the blind. Whether you're compliant with specific requirements seemingly can depend on who your assessor is and which way the wind is blowing. Having recently witnessed a panel of assessors discussing CyberEssentials, it's clear what constitutes a pass for one individual may not for another. Each interprets requirements in their own eyes, and each can have a different level of flexibility on if you're compliant. Seemingly, their mood or wind direction could affect this. CyberEssentials Plus is much harder to implement in a dev team than it is in many other sectors. Developers constantly need to be installing new software packages on their machines, as well as accessing their machines as root in order to be able to do their jobs. There are workarounds to all these problems, but they are just that, workarounds. It increases paperwork and reduces the autonomy of the users as they need to be authorized to do tasks in their day-to-day work. This took some adjustment and getting used to. It definitely increases your operational overheads. Aside from the cost of the assessment, there are other costs involved. Firewalls, device management, more expensive software packages with higher security levels. It all starts to add up very quick. For a team of 4 programmers, I suggest it's costing about $5,000 to $6,000 a year in literal and human costs to keep the compliance up. Don't get me wrong, it's still cheaper than a cyber attack, but for a small business, it's a massive overhead. It doesn't necessarily translate into more work. As a team of experienced programmers, we're always looking for ways to separate our skill set from those of others. I did think this accreditation may help. If it has helped, it's not obvious. The reality is most people still do not care about their own security, let alone yours. If you go for this accreditation hoping it will unlock the floodgate of additional work, you are probably mistaken. I feel like I've done a lot of moaning here, but the reality of the situation is that it absolutely improves your security stance. Our staff are better trained, our systems are more secure, and our attack surface is reduced. I can understand why this is a minimum requirement for the government projects in the UK, and it was an overall worthwhile exercise. CyberEssentials Plus is a lot of faff, and to the technically capable, it's clearly full of contradictions that makes you wonder, is it really worthwhile? But nothing in life is black and white, and things can be simultaneously good and bad. The cost is much higher than just the assessment, and you should bear that in mind when budgeting. Also, the accreditation is no guarantee of additional work. However, overall, CyberEssentials Plus does improve security stance, and if more people implemented it, our nation's security would be vastly improved.